In today's working world, fast-paced, hyper-connected, and noisy, words matter more than ever. The way we talk about our work isn't just style or habit. It shapes how we are understood, how decisions are made, and how trust is built. And yet, some of the most important words in professional life, value, strategy, impact, are used so casually, so often, that they have become slippery. We nod along when we hear them. We write them into reports, proposals, and mission statements. But if someone stopped us mid-sentence and said, "All right, what do you actually mean by that?" many of us would hesitate. That is why this conversation matters. Because clarity about value is not a nice to have, it is a foundation. If you want to work with purpose, lead effectively, or build trust across a team, you must be able to say what matters to whom and why. Without that clarity, even the best ideas can wither. They get lost in translation, or worse, they get agreed to on paper while everyone secretly imagines something different. And here's the first big truth. Value is not a fixed thing. It isn't sitting out there in the world like a gold coin waiting to be picked up. Value is relational. It lives in the space between needs, goals, and perceptions. What is priceless to one person can be pointless to another. And what feels essential today can be irrelevant tomorrow. Think about a glass of water, worthless to someone standing in the rain, priceless to someone lost in the desert. Same object, same chemistry, radically different value. It's not the glass, it's the context. That means in our work, value is always moving. It shifts with perspective. It is shaped by culture, by role, by timing, by what's at stake, which is why talking about it, making it explicit, isn't a philosophical exercise. It's a practical skill. The problem is, we rarely stop to define it. We assume everyone sees it the same way. That's how you end up with the same word being used in 10 different ways in the same meeting. One person says value and means cost savings. Another hears value and thinks brand prestige. Another is thinking social impact. No one is wrong, but if those differences remain unspoken, collaboration turns into drift. I've seen this happen in boardrooms, classrooms, healthcare projects, logistics networks, nonprofits, and creative industries. A team will launch a promising initiative only to watch it stall or get killed, not because it lacked substance, but because the people involved never agreed on what value looked like, or how to show it in each other's language. Here's an example. A hospital develops a digital tool for post-surgery recovery at home. It reduces hospital stays, improves patient safety, and patients love it. But when the team presents it to senior leadership, they start with, "This improves quality of life." The CFO frowns and says, "Yes, but what's the economic value?" The numbers they present are vague. The project gets shelved. Months later, a consultant reframes the exact same results. 2.1 million euros in savings from fewer readmissions, an 18% drop in complications, 7 full-time staff freed for other duties. Same tool, same benefits, different language. And suddenly, it's approved. The value was never missing. It just wasn't visible in the terms that mattered to that audience. This happens everywhere. In business, a logistics manager saves 250,000 euro by optimizing transport routes, but fails to link that to customer satisfaction, sales, and sustainability. So the proposal lands flat. In the public sector, a policy change improves service delivery, but is killed because the benefits are framed in jargon no one outside the department understands. In the creative industries, an artist pitches a project in emotional terms to a sponsor who is looking for audience metrics, and the idea is dismissed. The pattern is clear. If you can't talk about value in the language that matters to others, your work risks being undervalued or ignored, no matter how good it is. Now, there's no single correct definition of value. Economists think in terms of price and utility. Marketers think in terms of perceived benefit minus cost. Designers talk about meeting user needs through empathy and co-creation. Public administrators talk about social outcomes and legitimacy. Sustainability thinkers stretch the concept to include long-term planetary health. Philosophers connect it to ethics and meaning. You don't need to become an expert in all of these, but you do need to recognize that your definition is not the only one in the room. And the moment you do, your conversations change. So here is a practical working definition we can carry through this talk. Value is what people perceive as worthwhile in a given context, shaped by needs, goals, relationships, and meaning. Notice what's in there. Perception, context, relationships, meaning. None of these are fixed. That means value is something we create, negotiate, and sometimes destroy through our actions, our decisions, and our words. Which brings us to one of the most powerful tools for working with value, making it visible. And to do that, models and metaphors can be your allies. Take the value triangle: needs, outcomes, perception. If the need is clear, the outcome matches it, and people perceive it as meaningful, you've got value. Miss one corner, and it collapses. Delivering the right outcome to the wrong need? No value. Meeting a need but failing to show it in terms the audience understands? No value. Or the value ladder: functional, reliable, convenient, emotional, symbolic. It's not that every offer needs to climb to symbolic status, but knowing where you are and where your audience wants you to be helps you design intentionally. And then there's the value web, mapping all your stakeholders and their competing priorities. Pull one strand and others shift. You can't please everyone, but you can see the trade-offs instead of stumbling into them. Metaphors work too. Value as a compass, something that points you toward what matters, even when the map is unclear. Value as choreography, how well the different parts of a process move together. Value as translation, re-expressing the same worth in different languages so different audiences can see it. These models and metaphors don't give you the truth about value. As statistician George Box once said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. They give you a way to notice, align, and act with more clarity. But clarity is never permanent. Misunderstandings creep in. Blind spots develop. Let's talk about a few of the big ones. First, the efficiency trap. Believing faster, cheaper, leaner automatically means more valuable. It doesn't. Efficiency can serve value, but it can also erase it if it compromises trust, quality, or meaning. Lean thinking in its true form is not about speed alone. It's about maximizing value as defined by the customer and eliminating waste that doesn't serve that value. Second, the siloed metric, mistaking one performance indicator for the whole picture. NPS, ROI, cost per unit, each tells part of the story, but only part. In supply chains, siloed metrics lead to sub-optimization. One function looks good on paper, while the overall system suffers. Integration, shared goals, shared data, shared language is the antidote. Third, the innovation bias, assuming newer automatically means better. Technology can be dazzling, but without stakeholder alignment, it can create exclusion, friction, or even harm. The most powerful innovations are not the flashiest. They are the ones grounded in the realities of those they aim to serve. Fourth, the consensus mirage, mistaking surface agreement for shared understanding. People nod in meetings, but they're picturing different things. Real alignment comes from surfacing assumptions, not skipping over them. Fifth, the externalization of value, defining your worth entirely by how others see you. External perception matters, but when it becomes the only compass, you lose internal coherence. Organizations that chase short-term legitimacy at the expense of their core purpose end up hollow. So how do we work with value in a way that avoids these traps? It starts with reframing conversations. Instead of assuming alignment, ask, what does success look like to you? Who benefits? Who might be overlooked? What are we assuming has value, and why? These questions slow people down, invite reflection, and surface the differences you need to work with, not ignore. It also means designing for value, not just delivering outputs. In supply chain terms, that means looking at the whole flow from raw material to end user, tracing where worth is added, where it's lost, and how to strengthen it. Alderson called this the transvection view. Value is produced through a sequence of transformations, and the only way to truly understand it is to trace it all the way to the hands of the end user. In services, where pooled and reciprocal interdependencies are more common, this tracing looks different, but the principle holds. Ultimately, value is the connective tissue between purpose and practice. If you can talk about it with clarity, you can align people who otherwise might be pulling in different directions. You can defend decisions, persuade skeptics, and build trust. You can spot when efficiency is cutting muscle instead of fat, when innovation is creating noise instead of progress, when consensus is an illusion, when metrics are hiding the bigger picture. And perhaps most importantly, you can lead, not by having all the answers, but by asking the right questions. So as you take these ideas back into your own work, think about this. The next time you find yourself in a meeting, in an interview, in a pitch, pause for a moment. When someone says value, don't just nod. Ask what they mean. Ask how they'll know, and be ready to answer the same. Because when we make value visible, when we give it shape, language, and shared meaning, we don't just make better decisions, we make better connections. And in a world where context is always shifting, that might be the most valuable thing we can do. If you'd like to explore these ideas in more depth, the full book, What is Value? Talking Purpose in Work and Society, is available for purchase on Amazon. You'll find the link in the comments section.
This is What is Value? Talking Purpose in Work and Society, a book about one deceptively simple word and why your ability to talk about it clearly can decide whether your work connects or gets lost. It's available now on Amazon with the direct link in the comments section. The book is part of the Mastering Professional Conversations series, a set of short, practical guides that each focus on one key concept in professional life. Every title blends real-world examples, simple theory, and ready-to-use tools so you can speak with more clarity, bridge perspectives, and avoid costly misunderstandings. This volume comes first for a reason. Value is the question behind every plan, budget, and decision. What matters here, to whom, and why? Without a shared language for that, even the best ideas drift. This book helps you find that language and use it.